So we're going to play a tiny game.
Is this a game that will be short, or one where we have to be like tiny people? Like,
would it not be short if we were tiny people? Would that affect the length of the game?
No, not necessarily. But I just wondered if it was like a tiny game because it was like for tiny people.
No,
like a tiny person game.
It's a short game.
Okay. I love what your eye did there. I love that twitch that happened. You're just like, hey man, what you said doesn't compute.
So I have spent a lot of time thinking about the fact that we are at the dawn of the 21st century.
Yeah, right.
And what literature looked like at the beginning of the dawn of the 20th century. And how much things have changed and how much things have fallen away.
That Master of the Phantasm song stuck in your head?
Yeah.
The future!
Yeah. So I have here a list of 5 things that I want to do a quick... Do you think, let's say in 2117, do you think these ideas will be done with?
Great.
Or at the very least, only be done as retro throwbacks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just played out, or people aren't interested in them anymore, or they're not relevant.
Sound and space. Will no sound and space become the standard, and the only time we do sound and space is when we're intentionally throwing back?
It's going to be really hard not to say it depends for a lot of these, isn't it? I'm going to say it depends on whether or not we still have anything reminiscent of Hollywood.
Okay.
Because if we have mostly independent people making movies, trying to be more realistic is more likely to become the standard. If we're trying, if we just want dumb popcorn movies, we will always have sound in space.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not saying that no sound in space doesn't happen in dumb popcorn movies. I guess that kind of does happen.
And I think it's starting to creep in, which is why I'm...
Well, no, you're right, it is, but I also think it depends on the genre still. I mean, at least right now. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure how to come down on that.
Okay. Laser guns.
We will always have that.
Okay. You think so?
I think we will always
have that. Because we have lasers now, and they don't work like that.
No, but it's been such a staple of science fiction. I think there's a larger issue at play, which is, will we still be doing those kinds of science fiction throwbacks? You know what I mean? Like will in 100 years we still have nostalgia for 50 science fiction films and those kinds of things? It's possible that if we figure out how to make laser guns work like that, we just have them as realistic things in movies.
That's true.
We have them, but that's possible.
But like, even into the 2000s, we're still doing laser guns as things that are supposed to be into the future.
Futuristic, yeah.
Will we keep doing that?
It kind of depends on what the technology ends up looking like.
If we get laser guns, obviously we'll keep doing it.
Part of the reason, yeah, and I don't mean to overthink it, but part of the reason we do laser guns is because it's a really cheap fact.
That's true. That's true. All right. Okay, so this one requires a little bit of explanation. I just wrote monsters. Because I've been thinking about this, how we haven't really done like a real solid like vampire movie or werewolf movie in a long time. Are those essentially 19th century ideas that we kind of drug through the 20th century? Like, are we done with some of that folklore kind of stuff?
I mean, I think you're like with everything. It's gonna be really. It would be hard not to answer a lot of these questions exactly the same way. But I think you're always gonna have pockets of it where you're always gonna have like somebody that wants to keep old ideas alive. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously Sherlock Holmes is not going away.
No, and Greek myths are still around, but
sure,
they're not as widespread. Do you think some of the stuff could become much more niche than it is now?
Yeah.
I mean, vampires alone, we had to drastically alter because the country's become so much less religious. The world's become so much less religious.
Right, yeah.
And so much of their allure is...
Could it be reinvented to the point that it's unrecognizable and it's not really vampires anymore, but we still call it that? I think that's possible.
Yeah, yeah. But like were creatures and things like that.
We're not done with dragons.
No, we're not done with
things
dragons.
like that. I kind of think that they will stick around in some form. And
well, we're not still trying to scare people.
There's a tone and a style that is undeniable that nothing. That I don't know. I think we're gonna keep making Gothic period pieces. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think when we do unrealistic stylistic ones, those kinds of things are liable to come up in them.
Okay. Flying cars. Are we going to give up? Are we all just going to realize that that's completely impractical? No one should be trusted with flying cars. Traffic would be insane.
As being a futuristic idea, yeah, I don't think so. And I think we're likely to come up with some kind of transportation that would surpass it to the point where flying cars, even if we never have them, would feel quaint. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I still think beaming,
and jetpacks would be the same way.
Like beaming might end up ultimately being possible. You know, we have figured out how to do this with a really super tiny particle. We can. I don't know if you know this. There was an experiment a few years ago where we were able to teleport light.
I think I heard about that, and I heard.
And so there's some discussion that it could be possible with matter.
I want to say they were talking about working their way up to like an apple or something.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think in 100 years the notion of a flying car could be really quaint. It could be like the flying car is going to look like Rosie the Robot.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't think of that as realistic. We think of that as kitsch, and I think the flying car will be considered kitsch.
And my last one is alien invasion, or possibly aliens just in general. As we discover more about the universe, and it seems far less likely that if other life exists, that we're going to meet it.
Yeah, that won't go away.
Okay.
I don't think so. That one, yeah. Well, partly because
I'm seeing a lot of science fiction, like The Expanse, and like a lot of other things, where we're not doing the future where we're still colonizing planets, we're still terraforming, but we're not doing like Star Trek, where there's a lot of alien species. It seems like we're doing a lot more like Firefly.
I think we like to do alien species when we go way far ahead, though. You know, I think we might just be slightly more realistic about it, but I think people are just going to keep imagining that and wanting it to be true and a possibility. And as I've said a million times, aliens are not magic. Regardless of how far apart planets and galaxies are, it's still possible. It's still plausible. That's what speculative fiction is always based on. The day when nobody is interested in the notion of what if we meet aliens, because it's not always about what's possible or what's likely. It's about what's plausible, right? It's speculative fiction. The day that we completely stop being interested in that is the day we stop doing speculative fiction. So when you're not going to have science fiction without aliens. It's not going to happen.
All right, those are my 5.
That was really good.
What do you got?
Did you agree with my answers, or because
yeah?
I mean, I'm sure you thought a lot about those yourself.
I could foresee in the near future sound and space being just. We only do that when we do retro stuff. We just all know that there's no sound space, and that's going to be the constant, even in action movies.
I think you could be right about that. The more you're saying that,
I think laser guns could go away unless we start developing something like that.
Yeah.
And we saw a movement in the mid 2000s where we tried to get rid of laser guns. The Transformers use bullets.
I clearly haven't given this as much thought as you have, but yeah.
Transformers or the Terminator Salvation moved to bullets as opposed to lasers.
That's true.
But I don't know. Especially in where we are right now.
Also, we could quibble about the motivations for those things. You know what I mean? Why did we want those to look more military, more like modern military? Is it for the sake of realism, or is it to interest certain, of your demographic? I don't know. But
right now we're in such a kind of 2000s nostalgia era. It's hard to tell what it's going to look like in 50 years or 100 years because you look at things like Guardians of the Galaxy, or even Valerian, which is based on 60s comics. Everything is harkening back to Star Wars, and Star Wars is harkening back to Flash Gordon and space serials. I think it's possible we get past laser guns, but I don't know.
But we're also getting past a point where anybody realizes that Star Wars is based on anything.
That's true. That's true.
So the nostalgia for Star Wars. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. I know a lot of people know that, but there's a lot of people that don't. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids that don't. And so, as kids grow up and they're the people that are making things that are throwing back to Star Wars, it's going to be interesting to look at the world 20, 30, 40 years from now and see what the nostalgia wave looks like. If we're still into kitsch and throwback, but to whatever the kids now are growing up with, they're looking at second, third, even sometimes fourth generations of things that some of us, I mean, obviously not fourth generation, but that some of us saw the initial iterations of. What will their versions of it be? Either not realizing or not taking the time to really look at what came before, and not having the perspective of what came before. Even if there's knowing a thing and there's living a thing, you know what I mean? So even if they academically know it, even if they do their homework, they weren't there.
Yeah.
So what what are the things that throw back to Star Wars in 40 years going to look like versus what they look like now?
Yeah. Monsters. I don't know. I could see them on their way out. I could see us. I think you might be right. I think we could try and reinvent them, because I think the biggest problem that
we keep trying to reinvent them.
I think the biggest problem that the kind of classic monsters have now is
it's starting to feel like vampire could mean anything.
Yeah,
a lot of the time, like blood in some way. It seems like that's the only caveat. Like
a lot of that stuff, I feel like at this point, it's like fucking cartoon shows. Like it's become so kitsch. Like that idea of the classic monsters, like it's not scary. And I think that it could maybe stick around, but I don't think it'll be horror, necessarily.
Yeah.
Flying cars, I think are done.
Yeah.
And aliens, I don't know. I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot. That's actually what initially generated the list. Was I was like, there's a lot of science fiction right now that's not doing aliens. Is it possible we stop doing aliens?
I really hadn't thought of that. You're absolutely right about it. I mean, I thought about it with Firefly because that was so unusual.
But now it's almost. I'm not going to say it's become the norm. But I feel like we are seeing a lot more science fiction that is just like, yeah, it's the future and there are no aliens. It's just us in space.
It also could become the difference between hard and soft sci-fi.
Sure.